What is this? Hey, good morning. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right. It's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. Hey, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. You know I post college football videos almost every single day of the year, and sometimes they're even watchable. Up today, a football preview, a schedule preview for Tennessee Vols 2020. Now, I've done a whole series of these. I don't know, 20 or so far. I'll put a link up here somewhere to a playlist. You can click the link. It'll take you to the list of teams that we've done so far, and you can check out any teams that you might be interested in. And we're going to continue this for the next couple of weeks. Now, this isn't a prediction video. I'm not trying to figure out what Tennessee's record might be for 2020. We're really just taking a look at the schedule. I'll do some record predictions later in the offseason after the spring games have been played and things like that. And we have a little bit more information about what some of these teams might look like for 2020. We're going to start out with the 2019 schedule real briefly. Here it is. I'll put it up here so we can take a look at it. Now, we're just looking at this so we can try to figure out when we look at the 2020 schedule, is it going to be easier, harder? What about the non-con games, the road games, that kind of thing? But you all know by now, Tennessee 2019, they went 7-5 in the regular season, won a bowl game over Indiana to finish 8-5. I think a pretty successful season for Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt, year two overall. Now, there were some clear issues last season, right? Mainly the first two games of the year when they lost to Georgia State and BYU. But I think those two losses are part of the reason why the end of the season should be considered such a success for Tennessee and Jeremy Pruitt. It would have been very easy for Tennessee to mail it in last year after the way their season started. The loss to Georgia State and BYU to open things up was inexcusable, no doubt about it. But you then beat Chattanooga, you lose to Florida and Georgia. But then that Mississippi State game came along, and you're sitting there at, 1-4 at that point when you host Mississippi State, who wasn't a great team, but they were favored in that game. Not very many people expected you to win that game based off the way things had gone up to that point in the season for Tennessee, but you did win that game against Mississippi State 20-10, and in my opinion, that game saved the season for Tennessee. Like I said, it would have been real easy for the players and the coaching staff and really everybody involved with the Tennessee program to sort of ship it in last year after that 1-4 start, especially the Georgia State and BYU loss. But they found a way to come together and get it done right there in the middle of the season against Mississippi State. And even though Mississippi State wasn't a great team, I feel like that win really saved their season. If you would have lost that game, of course, you played at Alabama the following week, which was another loss. But that ended up being your last loss of the 2019 season. You finished with 6 straight wins if you include the bowl game. Now, you didn't beat any great teams, but let's be real. Tennessee over the last 10 years or so has been losing more of these games than they've been winning. So to go on this run at the end of the year, considering how the season started, I think was a pretty good end to the season. A win over South Carolina, UAB, Kentucky, Mizzou, Vandy, and of course we mentioned Indiana in the bowl game. All right, so that's it for 2019. Let's throw 2020 up on the screen now. Take a look at it. Easier, harder, about the same. Let's find out. You start things off with Charlotte. They're probably not even as good as Georgia State. I think Tennessee should win that game. I think everyone thinks Tennessee should win that game. You got to go out and win that one. Let's be honest. You can't start out. You can't make the same mistakes in 2020 starting the season off that you made in 2019. That would be unacceptable by any standard. Mainly because you follow that up with a trip to Oklahoma in week 2. As much as people are going to expect you to win week 1, they're going to expect you to lose week 2. Does that mean you can't win? Of course that doesn't mean you can't win. Clearly you can win that game. Will you? We'll have to wait and see. Again, this isn't a prediction video, but obviously Oklahoma is going to be a big favorite. They're what most people would consider to be a much better team than Tennessee, plus it's played in Norman. That's a tough non-con game. Definitely tougher than any non-con game you had last year. Last year you played Georgia State, BYU, Chattanooga, and UAB. None of those teams anywhere near the level of an Oklahoma. You follow that up with a home game against Furman. So 3 non-con games to start the season out, just like 2019. Now, you went 1-2 to start the season out in 2019. You got to go 2-1 in 2020. I know 3-0 would be great too, but you can't do any worse than 2-1 in 2020. You just can't. You can't go 1-2 again. You got to win 2 of those 3, Charlotte and Furman, right? People would forgive you for a loss on the road at Oklahoma. Then your SEC schedule starts at home. Back-to-back home games in the SEC, Florida and Mizzou. Then you travel to South Carolina before your bye week. Then home game against Alabama, on the road at Arkansas, home against Kentucky, on the road at Georgia, home against Troy, your final non-con game of the year, and then on the road at Vandy. So home, away, home, away, home, away, home, away, the last 6 or 7 weeks of the season here for Tennessee. All right, let's compare it to 2019. Clearly, the non-con is more difficult in 2020 than it was in 2019. That's the bad news. The good news is you went 2-2 against that pitiful non-con schedule in 2019. You could go 3-1 here. Even though the non-con is more difficult because of the Oklahoma game, you're going to be expected to go 3-1 against the non-con schedule this week. So you're going to make up a win right there off of your 2019 record, in theory anyway, right? You should beat Charlotte, Furman, and Troy. Again, you'll be forgiven should you lose to Oklahoma. As far as the SEC schedule goes, you catch your road games against South Carolina, that's winnable. Arkansas, that's winnable. Georgia, well, that's not winnable. And then at Vandy. So 3 of your 4 road games, you could conceivably be a favorite in, right? Vandy, Arky, and South Carolina, depending on how they look the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. That game probably in the toss-up category right now in my mind. I know Tennessee handled them pretty easy last year, beating them, was it 41-21, I think it was. I don't think South Carolina's going to be as bad as they were last year. I think Tennessee will be a little bit better than they were last year too, though. So we'll see, but you got to play them there. Even if you lose that one, though, again, you're looking at possibly 3-1 there on the road. Not terrible considering where Tennessee has been over the last 10 to 12 years, right? Now, your home games are pretty tough. Florida and Mizzou. Mizzou's a wild card. They lose Kelly Bryant. He was the one-and-done deal from last year after transferring from Clemson, so we'll see which direction they go with the quarterback. I think you're probably a better team than Mizzou and will be expected to win that game at home. Florida at home, they're a top 10 team heading into the season. They'll probably still be a top 10 team at this point in the year. I doubt anyone expects them to have a loss this early in the season, but again, we'll see what happens when the season starts. Then you get the home game against Alabama. It's in the Florida category. They're going to be a top 10 team. They're going to be favored, even though it's at Neyland. Not many people are going to expect you to win that game. We'll see if you can pull it off. Home against Kentucky, must-win game. You got to beat that. You got to beat Kentucky. Troy, you got to beat Troy, right? Not an easy schedule. It never is in the SEC. You throw Oklahoma in there in the non-con, and the 2020 schedule for Tennessee sets up to be another tough one. Let's just be real. I think Tennessee can improve from last year. The Georgia State and BYU loss made Tennessee's season seem a lot worse last year than it was. Got to avoid those pitfalls this year. People are going to run out of patience real quick with Jeremy Pruitt if he keeps dropping non-con games to lower classification schools. Again, forget the OU game. No one's going to hold a loss to OU against Tennessee or Jeremy Pruitt. Now, you don't want to go out and lose 60-10 or something like that. You'd like for the game to be competitive, and you'd like to win the game. Again, this isn't a prediction. You may beat them. We'll see. I'm just saying, if you're going to lose a non-con game this year, make it the Oklahoma game, not Charlotte, not Furman, and not Troy, right? Road trip to Georgia, not going to be easy. You do catch Alabama and Florida at home. Is there any way Here's the biggest question I've heard about Tennessee's schedule in 2020, honestly. You don't have any back-to-back road games. That's great. You got 3 cupcake non-con games. That's great. You catch a couple of your more difficult opponents at home. That's great, right? Here's the question I keep hearing and keep asking Tennessee fans and hearing from other people about this schedule for 2020. You look at the big 4 on Tennessee's schedule in 2020, right? Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Those are 4 top 10 teams, or at least they will be heading into the season. Again, we'll see where those teams are when you actually end up playing them during the season. But those are 4 teams that most people expect to be pretty good in 2020, top 10-ish, right? Can Tennessee beat one of those 4 teams? That seems to be, to me, from what I'm hearing, sort of the goal or the benchmark from what some, I think, reasonable Tennessee fans are expecting, right? 8-4 would be the bare minimum I think you can go against this schedule here. That would be losing those 4 games and then beating all the teams you're supposed to beat. Charlotte, Furman, Mizzou, South Carolina, Archie, Kentucky, Troy, and Vandy. Can you beat one of those 4 top 10-ish teams on the schedule? Florida and Alabama at home. Is there a way you can split that? If you can split that, it's going to be an amazing season for Tennessee. Hard to see you winning on the road at Georgia. Hard to see you winning on the road at Oklahoma. Again, it could happen, right? If I had to pick one of those 4 games right now that I gave Tennessee the best chance to win, it would be the home game against Florida early in the season. You're not likely to have a lot of injuries at that point in the season. In my opinion, you'll probably be 2-1 at worst at that point in the season, still with everything to play for, right? I think Tennessee could conceivably show up early in the season at home and get that big win over Florida. Again, I'm not predicting that will or won't happen. Maybe you lose to Florida but beat Georgia. Maybe you lose to Florida and Georgia but beat Oklahoma. Who knows? Point is, those are the 4 games for Tennessee that people pretty much have circled for this year. And if you do lose to those 4 teams, how do you lose? Do you lose by 20, 30 or more points? Are they one-possession games? Can Tennessee stay competitive into the second half with some of those 4 teams? These are the things I think Tennessee fans will be looking for in terms of like a step forward type of deal, building off year to year, right? We'll see. 2020 Tennessee Vols football schedule. Feel free to make your predictions down below if you want. Like I said, I'll do some prediction videos later in the offseason when we've got some more information to go on. This is just really a brief look at the schedule. God bless to Cheddar Bob, who shot himself in the leg for Tennessee. Have a good morning.